Welcome everyone again to our Inside the Box lecture series, and if you recall this semester it's about sleeping. And today I'm so delighted to introduce you to Clodagh. She's internationally famous. We're so lucky to have her with us, and she's known for doing design that's for people's well-being. It's some of the most beautiful design you'll see. A couple of facts. I first have to read a quote that I found on her website. Behind every no, there is a yes somewhere. She's the most positive person I have ever known. And if you're in a space with her, you just feel the positive energy coming from her, and if you're in any of her design work, you would feel the same thing. So she's really quite special. Good design supports well-being, and that it can transform people's lives. She's known for life-enhancing minimalism. She's one of the earliest adopters of feng shui, always ahead of the curve with chromotherapy and biophilia. Clodagh brought this into our lives, and she's extremely important because of this one fact. She was green before most others. When people were probably making fun of anyone talking about things that are green, it's in Clodagh's bones, from a very green country, Ireland, and she brings this through all of her work and all of her products. She started out with her own fashion house in Dublin, moved into an overall design firm in Spain, and then opened a design studio in New York City in 1985. Her work includes million-square-foot hotels, residential buildings, international space, private residences, restaurants, offices, furniture, private jets, and yachts, among many, many, many other projects. She was inducted into the Interior Design Hall of Fame, the Hospitality Design Platinum Circle. Architectural Digest calls her one of the top 100 designers in the world. The Robb Report reports that she's one of 10 interior designers in the world. She also is a great philanthropist. She has her own project called the Thorn Tree Project, where she's helping educate students in northern Kenya, and I would ask for you to look that up. I think that's really important. She's just written her third book. She wrote a book in 2001 that I think is on its third edition, 2008, and we have her third book. This is for us, for the school. It's a great read, and it includes all of Clodagh's concepts. So I just can't thank her enough for being here. So if you can give a great round of applause.
That's a lot you've said about me. I think I can leave now. No. I was just thinking, this is a huge subject. Divide your ages by 3, each one of you. That's probably the amount of time you've spent sleeping. It's a big subject. We sleep possibly, babies sleep 17 hours. We sleep, if we're lucky, 7-8 hours. So it's a huge subject, and it's incredibly important because wellness through sleep is absolutely imperative. If you sleep badly, you become nasty, you trip up, you have accidents, you get diabetes. I mean, it just impacts your life incredibly. It's very important. So as you're doing your all-nighters, red eyes and stuff like that, think about that. I mean, I've done mine too, but you don't feel great the next day. So I'm the CEO and principal of Clodagh Design. We're about 25 people, and about 5 times as much of that are actually incredible people who help us, like lighting designers and stuff like that. We have endless supply of people. I also have the title of CPIA. Can anybody guess what that means? Okay, I'll tell you. Chief pain in the ass. No. I mean, it's a title I'm proud of. Because I'm always pushing the studio and myself to do better. What are we doing well and what should we do better? Life-enhancing minimalism is what we've been working with. It's something we've inducted into our studio from get-go. It's everything that you need, but nothing more than what you need. That's the plan. And we make the invisible tangible. I'll be explaining more about that later. So the elements, everything in our world is a compound of 5 elements. And actually we're that compound as well. So if we too much fire energy, it's not good. If we got too much wet energy, it's not good, you know. So we have to balance the elements in our systems, in our bedrooms, in our lives, in our apartments, in our houses, in our gardens. And also we work with the senses. The senses are very useful because in neuroplasticity, the senses inform the emotions. And now it's discovered that the emotions are reinforced by the senses. They talk back to each other. Very interesting things going on in our brains. I suggest you study that a little bit because to make people well, we want them to have a very strong, happy emotional response when they're in their homes or taking stuff out of their closets or in their bedrooms. And so sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, and the spiritual are things we address as well. I mean, none of us know why we're really here, whether we believe in something or we don't really believe in something. So tapping into our spiritual element is very important, just to think about it and think how we can leave the world a better place. I actually just gave a lecture in Cesena, Italy on wellness by design, from the cradle to the departure lounge. Because if we're lucky, we'll land in the departure lounge and hopefully it'll be first class, right? So good design speaks to all of this. And when we're working with total design, we work with the 4 C's. Contemplate. What you do when you're contemplating, you think about where you were, where you are now, and where you want to go. Whether it's the design, your personal life, or whatever. It's the 4 C's. I like C because my name begins with C, so it's what I started with. And then you cleanse. You're cleansing your mind as well as your bodies, your mind, and your living spaces, because stagnation, outused ideas, beliefs you don't believe in anymore but keep trotting in to trip you. All of these should be cleansed out before you start a design. It's a very good idea. I have one great advantage over all of you, and that is I've never been to design school, so I can challenge anything. If you go to design school, sometimes you learn something and it's hard to challenge it. And then clarify. So clarify, you make 3 lists. What is imperative, what you must have, a list of what you might have, and a list of your real wishes. So whether you're working with a client or a brand, we try to figure out where the importance lies. And you have your 3 lists, and I actually ask people to jump from the first list to the wish list and leave the things that can be negotiated to negotiate themselves and fall off the program. And with that, we establish a program and we create. So to establish a program for our clients, we write a narrative. We very often write about what we're going to design before we design it. Because the problem with making sketches, they tend to be indelible in your mind. And if you're writing, actually, your thoughts can kind of wander and different. You're not constrained by sketches. And anybody who's seen the book of the movie or the movie of the book or whatever it is will know exactly what I mean, because it's not what you thought it was going to be, you know. So we have a toolbox, and this all applies to sleep. It all applies to our bedrooms. Biophilia. Are you all familiar with biophilia? It was a fairly new word about like 15 years ago or 16 years ago. I was invited to speak up at Harvard or Yale, I can't remember, about biophilia. And I said, what's that? No. It turned out I'd been using it all along. You know, I'm working with green because what I want to do always is have some kind of slot of light or some little place where you can look out and see a garden. When I was in Tokyo years ago, I remember I was in a ryokan, and this helper came in the morning and just raised a shade slightly, and there was a cherry tree in perfect blossom. You know, that's biophilia. That lingers in the mind, and it's healing. And we all have an inner video, and we should enjoy it, of the happy moments in our lives. And this is what we want to reproduce again and again for ourselves and our clients. If we're not happy, our clients are not going to be. It's actually the way it is. You know, we have to convey really good energy. I mean, something like this is biophilia. This was a car park outside somebody's great house, and their dining room was inside. So I turned it into a little courtyard, and the mojitos are mixed on that bar there. And the bar's there permanently, so if you feel like having a party, my son said something the other day I really liked. He said, spontaneity is great if it's carefully planned. No. So we work also with biogeometry. That symbol there is for wellness and balance. It's a resonant image that our biogeometrist designed for us for a hotel in Miami. And that's probably the most selfied elevator in the world because it's got this infinity thing. I took my own first selfie there, actually. I had to do it. But there again, an elevator can be the dullest place in the world, or it can be a fun ride. So it's like a corridor. This is, again, biogeometric. It's respecting people who've died in the Miraval Resort and Spa in Tucson, Arizona, where there were Hopi incidents, Indian incidents, when there had been pogroms. The place had been, before, it had been a place where you went to dry out from alcoholism or if you had huge nerve problems. So Alberto designed this, which is the gateway to wellness and the fifth world. The male metal is the steel, the female is the copper. That is the gateway. That's the turquoise, which is respecting the sacred stones of the Indians. And this is a citrine. So that's constantly cleansing the symbol, and you're also cleansed as you go into the spa. Now, would you turn to each other for a moment? Because on the left, that is called a Hopi handshake. It's a link. Give me your hand and I'll show you. Okay? Can stand up? So, okay, throwing her phone around, I do it all the time. Just curl your hand like that, and now pull. That's the Hopi handshake. The indigenous Americans forming a link. Do it with each other. Come on, you're supposed to all do it, not sit there and look at us. No. Isn't it nice? Yeah. See, because normally you take a hand, you know, but this is a link, which is a different thing. So working with symbolism and the physicality, has everybody done it, or some of you? And we work with chromatherapy, which is interesting. And aromatherapy, of course, I was having a terrible row with my husband in a car in New Zealand. Never have a row in a car because the energy of the car, the metal energy, just heats up the row. We just went over a rise, a hill, and came down, and there was this lavender field. This fragrance, it was an open car, fragrance of the lavender was everywhere. And this is what the color also can do, color and scent. And using all the colors in a room is a very good idea. So here we've kind of thrown in the colors in art, you know, on the floor, on the table. So all the elements and all the colors are represented in that room. And then, of course, feng shui. Hands up everybody who's familiar with feng shui. Oh, quite a lot of you. So I started feng shui some years back. I met a feng shui master, and we started working together immediately. Sarah Rosbach, she's amazing. 1985, I think it was, almost right after I opened my business here. And feng shui informs design. It's something to remember. My clients are sometimes scared of it. They think feng shui is going to change their design, not going to look like the way it should be. Feng shui informs design, but it also helps the flow of energy through space. Health, prosperity. I show you that because those standing or poles there, or totems, or whatever, are actually welcoming people coming into the door to a lobby. And the sound of water is welcoming people who are actually opening their mail. So they can be opening bills or love letters, it doesn't matter. They've got some help from sort of feng shui. And then wabi-sabi is a celebration and reverence for the natural aging of things, which is nice for people like me who are getting older. So as I get older, presumably I'll just look better, right? And we take metals, and this is a restaurant we did about 10 or 12 years ago up in Columbus Circle, but we interfere with the metals. We abrade them so they look old. Because I think there's nothing worse than walking into an all-white room with all perfectly polished glass and mirror and stuff like that, and you are the only imperfect thing there. You know. And when for instance, in Japan, where you're going into places where there's a woven tatami mats and there's the earth on the walls and stuff like that, you feel so at home and so grounded. So coming to sleep, I hope I haven't put you all to sleep already, but it would be very successful if I had, actually, wouldn't it? So read that. That was written, what was it,
1580. 1580.
1580. So people were composing odes to sleep. People were talking about sleep. I know there's a poem by Keats about sleep, and you know, forever. It's a very important thing. And there's two words beginning with S we don't talk about much actually in our lives. One is sex and one is sleep. So it's about time we started talking about the interconnection too of what happens in a bedroom. So sleeping for nomads, I have slept around about 152,000, maybe 1,000 times, I don't know. I travel all the time. And what I do is, as I go to hotel rooms, because I'm working internationally, and it doesn't matter what the room is, whether I'm stuck in a Marriott Marquis or whether I have a luxury hotel, doesn't matter, I'm there with my camera making notes. Making notes wherever I go, camera notes on my iPhone. So this is a room we designed for Six Senses Hotel in Portugal, which is, I think it's been nominated, I don't know how many times, as best hotel, best hotel, best hotel. It's very simple. There was an ancient building and a new building. So we tried to link the two, like the Hopi handshake, and just make a very comfortable room. It was the Porto is on the Silk Route, so I imagine there might have been a sunken galleon with oxidized metal in its hole, so that's what the wall covering happened out of that. We're using weaving and knitting, and just very comfortable, not trying to go over the top, not trying to go ultra modern, just to make you feel when you go into your bedroom, you don't say wow, you say ah, because that's what you want to do in your bedroom. You don't want to go in and say, oh, wow, 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 and get overexcited. That happens out in the lobby or in the restaurant. Everywhere, every bedroom that we work with, there is somewhere to put your stuff. There's always hooks, plenty of hooks. There's plenty of sleeping spaces. You can actually, this is in the Douro Valley, the wine district. So we created these benches so you could hang out with your family in that suite, 4 or 6 of you, just lie along these or sit on them. And it's an extension of the sleepings. So sleeping around can happen out in your garden or it can happen in your bedroom. And color is important too for sleep, because orange is a nice communication color, and that deep teal is a calming color. And we've used large photographs behind the beds, huge photographs of water. That's actually one of mine, to calm you. We have our geometry master actually in our studio today. And I was showing him this, and he said, perfect. So it always makes me feel good, because they come and criticize me too. This is in Kaplankaya in Turkey. And a lot of things happen in the bedroom when you're traveling. And one of them is an iPad. So we made that screen so the people sleeping, because this is a double in the room, would not be disturbed by the iPad. So discreet ways of hiding things. what you see when you wake up and what you see when you go to sleep have a profound impact on you. Just profound. So here, of course, we had the advantage of the view, which was great. So we made the knife edge reflecting pool outside that. And it's a little pool. You can't swim in it, but you can dip in it. So you could see that as you woke up. Some people, however, want shades, and they want shades with tracks on them because they can't sleep with any light at all. I have that problem in my family, so I stick a mask on my husband. No, I like the light. I could sleep in Grand Central Station. No. And it's nice, too, to get the bathroom to be really part of the room. So it's an extension, so that, because a lot of people have the tub ritual before they go to sleep. They use aromatherapy, put an aromatherapy candle on, have a tub. That means you can talk to the person in the tub from your bed. That kind of connection, the human connection is very important to me. That people can talk, because what's happening today is in restaurants you can't talk anymore. In nightclubs you can't talk anymore. Okay, you move about, you throw a few drinks back, but you cannot have a conversation. So the bedroom is becoming much more important for conversations, especially when you're traveling. I mean, at the Ace Hotel, you go down to the lobby, and it's the din is enormous, but you go up to your bedroom and it's quiet. And speaking of that, when we're designing bedrooms, we're very careful about what you don't see. The registers, the cold air doesn't fall on your face if you're in your bed, that the doors are proper gaskets and shut really quietly, that you feel very secure, the security is very simple, that you can read the fire code and everything on the door, that is not something that's in such small print that if there was a fire and there wasn't hardly any light, you got out of your bed, you wouldn't be able to read it, Because most of us here, many of you are wearing glasses. Most of us here actually have disabilities. I just got rid of one disability because I had my eyes operated on. I can now see without glasses, which is brilliant because I'm the world's greatest loser. I lose everything. So I kept my glasses person very, very rich. But we have all these disabilities we don't think about. And as designers, we have to think about that. That's a spa room. Again, textured and quiet is the way I would, it's a spa bed, another kind of bed that you actually might fall asleep on after treatment. Again, we're always thinking, what are you lying on that's green? It's absolutely environmental. What are you lying on? Lying on your mattress, is it environmental, or are you soaking up VOCs from some, plastics and stuff like that? An investment in your mattress is a really good thing. And we always talk to our clients about getting the best quality mattresses and the best quality pillows, because otherwise you're poisoning them. People need guidance. Our job as designers is to guide people. I call myself a travel guide. A good travel guide will bring somebody to the great places that everybody goes to, but also to the places that nobody has ever thought about going to. And people, when they come in and talk to a designer, don't think the designer's worrying about their mattress or the pillow. But in our studio, we are. And that's another of the sleeping around things. I designed this big daybed, a sofa, and you can actually, the mattress is deep enough so you can fall asleep on it out of doors. Of course, in the shade, we have to think about that too. And then sleeping for home. This is very important. We're also chameleons as designers. Of course, we've got ideas. We have a kind of, I suppose, a wellness brand that we think about wellness a lot. We think about laughter a lot of laughter in the studio. We think about dogs a lot of dogs in the studio. But some of our clients don't like dogs and just have cats. Some of them don't like animals at all. Some of them have different needs. So this couple, for instance, he's the guy who introduced Pokemon to the United States, so he's zipping around all the time. He wanted his bedroom to be very, very quiet. He wanted a fire in it. He wanted the photograph he gave his wife the day they got married. That's not the photograph, the painting. And we're being a travel guide. How do we do that? What colors do we use? We always ask their horoscope sign. What horoscope sign are you? That's right there on the project directory. Project directory, client, Taurus, we have at the moment, client, Pisces. Then we know what we're dealing with. It helps us to guide. It's not absolutely black and white, but it does help us to, any information we can get from the clients can go into our program and help us to figure out who we're dealing with. This bedroom is for a couple. He's a chef, and she actually is a film producer. Wildly active life. I said, what do you want in your bedroom? Visual silence. They both love white. Now, would I have my bedroom all white? No, my bedroom is actually not all white. It's kind of pale gray and, and white sheets, but I understood totally, and we gave them something that they absolutely loved. This guy is a playboy, I would say. No, fair to say. No. It's a townhouse in the West Village, and he wanted comfort, muscular, deep comfort, but not a lot of stuff. Wonderful carpet, a rug for under his feet, a big bed, a big bathtub, and invisible storage. So that block there is actually about 13 feet long and about 2 foot something deep, and it's got all the storage you can imagine for every t-shirt, every sweater, every pair of shoes for a couple in there. And then there's a hanging dressing room at the back. They were always trying to carve out storage, and I was looking at some of your visual essays, shall we call it, on closets, and you've got some great ideas. I'll probably rip you all off, actually. And then jump to Russia, opera singer, loves gold, reads a lot, and swims a lot. And here you have a totally different feeling. There again, we're being chameleons, we're living up to what we believe in, but we're interpreting the client. So there's her reading chair. The photograph on the right is by Richard Misrak, one of my favorite photographers, and it's huge. We just installed another one actually that's 12 feet long in somebody else's living room. And this is a gay couple in the West Village. Absolutely everything had to be immaculate and perfect and simple. And we have on our program the list of what has to go into each bedside table. So all the things you don't want everybody to see, right? But they should be there in case you need them. And proper reading lights, and we check those. You always check that your lighting, because lighting in bedrooms is incredibly important. I mean, sometimes you don't need much light at all, just for your reading light. Night lights should be in the reddish tones. I always thought they should be blue, but it turns out the reddish tone works better with your circadian rhythm. There's a company you should look up called Lighting Science Group, who are working with DLOS. You know DLOS, yeah, that are working with wellness. Again, a couple, West Village, just nothing. They didn't. I'd hate, for instance, seeing beds that you have to get into and remove 15 pillows before you do so. It should be just everything. Ask your client even to lie down on a bed. I won't take somebody out mattress shopping unless they get onto the blooming mattress. And I won't take anybody out shopping for a chair unless they get into it carelessly. This is something to always remember. If you're shopping for chairs or sofas, have your clients get into them carelessly. Don't be a little prissy thing, because sometimes when you sit down quickly, you'll get hurt by the frame, stuff like that. So it's all about wellness and all about dogs. And then we do, for instance, we do multifamily buildings. This is 312 apartments, and we were asked to do a model room. So this is the model room for 312 apartments on a budget. I mean, we're always given very tight budget. I mean, if I could engrave something on my forehead, it says value engineering. Everybody, all our developers want us to carve huge chunks of money off our furniture and then this is for a couple in their early 80s. which we've just done, actually. So it's inclusive design in the sense that their bathroom is barrier-free, the ADA. It was up to now a collector and had thousands of things, china that she never used that had been left by her great-grandmother and so on and so forth. We've done a pretty good job about not allowing it into the apartment. They have actually just bought a storage unit to put it away in case her daughter doesn't want it, in case some granddaughter of the future might want it. And that's the thing, it's about clearing out the stale stuff, you know? And there again, migratory sleeping, get out on a deck. And your babies, what are you going to do with your babies? They're sleeping all the time, you want it to be quiet. The baby's skin is much more permeable than your skin. Their lungs are much more fragile. They haven't built up the defense mechanism. They haven't built up the antibodies. So you have to be very careful. So you have to check that your paint is non-toxic. You do that anyway, but you do it twice or three times if you've got a kid. And this client actually does have his fourth little girl. So this is all about little girls. And they practically chose that room. But the thinking is gathering, community, getting together. It's the four little kids, the two older kids, that makes six, and the parents can all fit on that and tell stories and laugh and tickle each other. It's making places that are generous where stuff like that can happen. It's part of our job. The clients don't think about that. They're thinking about, what does my sofa look like? You know, what color, and so on and so forth. And that is for the same couple, actually, in another place where they hang out with the little kids. And this is where they look at movies as well. And then another thing, hands up everybody who's got a TV in their bedroom. A lot of you, yeah. It's not supposed to be great for you at all. It upsets your circadian rhythm if you look at the screen chatter before you go to sleep. So we came up with a way out of that. We've got sliding art. You just take it over. So we have it. You can actually electrify it. You can actually make it move at the touch of a button. Or this client just said, I'll just push it over myself. It's just something to think about, to get that kind of menacing black screen being the first thing you look at in the morning and the last thing you look at night. It should be life-enhancing art. And again, the sleep process. Have a list of what you put beside the bed. I mean, I goofed last night. I thought of something I wanted to put in your reading list, and I'd forgotten to put my notebook beside the bed. When you wake up in the middle of the night and the light bulb goes off in your head, have something somewhere you can write it down, a journal or something. Because if you turn on your iPhone at that moment, or whatever phone you use, again, it's interrupting your sleep rhythm. And you can design around that. You can make a place for everything. And that, again, is the sleeping around thing. It's for a couple in the West Village. They like to take a nap in the afternoon, okay? And they have people over for dinner, and they can hang out there. We're all multifunction, and our work should be multifunction. And the quietness and stillness and silence is so missing in our lives. So this, again, for the 312 apartment building, we made the quiet room. So we had it acoustically balanced, so you can't hear a pin drop. And right after I installed it, I went in, and there was a nanny with a baby fast asleep, and there was a very portly guy fast asleep on the right, and the nanny was there, and there was a guy in full lotus meditating in that room. Just so silent. And the products we use are acoustically balanced, and everybody uses it all the time. And it was a hard one to get. I have been called by my clients relentless, Clodagh. I was also, my husband I was asked in front of my husband to describe my character, and I said, maybe a sensitive army tank. And he said, maybe not always that sensitive. But go for what you want, because if there's truth in what you want, you can get it. If it's superficial, you probably can't and shouldn't. It's nice to hear the silence here, isn't it? That's Robert Redford's hangout, what we did for him out in Upper Fifth Avenue, place where he could just lie and look at the park. So be careful in the bathroom. Bathroom are responsible for, I don't know how many, I should have looked it up, but an enormous amount of accidents. Because you get in and you've had a few drinks and you fall over something. The floors are too slippery in a hotel and you fall. Bathrooms should be very carefully lit and laid out, so it's totally, you just do it instinctively. You do everything what you do in the bathroom instinctively. I often shut my eyes just to figure out, is this really intelligent? Can I really, if I had an eye mask on, can I find my Tylenol, for instance? The sound of water, of course, and tubs. And the bathroom is so intricately connected to the bedroom. You can't just talk about a bedroom and sleep without talking about a bathroom. Does the door shut silently if it's connected to the room? So if somebody gets up for a pee in the middle of the night, is that click of the latch that wakes you up? That's all terribly important. So when we're working with our studio members, we ask them to walk through the space. Live in the space. Why are you showing me this? And then, they'll say, well, doesn't it look great? I said, that's not the point. So bathroom is part of the bedroom I like, particularly for, in a hotel, it's just a very nice thing to lie in a tub, be by the fire. We like to have saunas near the room too, near the bedroom. And that encourages the sleep ritual. And just simple, that's a hotel bathroom. That bathroom, again, is in a multifamily condo, and it's a very simple bathroom, but that condo got the highest price for a duplex penthouse for the Upper East Side in history. Why? Because there's a panel in the wall that opens, that's floor-to-ceiling storage in the bathroom. When people are actually coming to look to choose an apartment, that's one of the foremost things in their mind. Where am I going to put my stuff? And you have stuff no matter what. Even a minimalist like me, I have stuff. And there again, at the thought of having a warmed rock that you sit on when you're shaving your legs in your shower, or just to sit and think. So we slice the stone with reflection, lead-free glass, so that you can just see right out. You're in your special place. It's just again, it's in every process in your life, every minute of your day is very precious. I mean, we just discovered, some of you discovered you've probably slept for 8 years of your life. So during your waking time, you better take advantage of it. This again is a 80-year-old or 82 and 80-year-old couple. Every pull there has full height storage behind it. They have a lot of product. She likes her makeup and everything like that, and he likes the various products. You walk into that bathroom, you would not know there was anything there. And that's the way I want it. Here, where, for instance, I have, those pantry pullouts they have in kitchens? I wanted an uninterrupted view of the bay. So he pulls out that one, she pulls out the other one. When he pulls it out, there's his shaving mirror, there's his light, there are all his products. He finishes getting up and he pushes it back in again. So another thing to think about in bedrooms and bathrooms is using stuff that, like kitchen hardware and stuff like that you mightn't think of transposing, hospital stuff. There was a great book called, what was it called? I can't remember now, but a great book about using, like what we use in our studio. We use restaurant carts for our samples. The layered ones, baker's carts, where you have trays and trays and trays. Again, this is for a Japanese client, so I'm taking, and this is actually in Kansas City, so I'm taking the Japanese influence and moving it into the closet in the bedroom. And if you can have a shower in your skinny out of doors, I think there's nothing better. Presumably just the birds are looking at you here, you know. This is one of my favorite cartoons ever. I have clients who say, well, I bought these on sale, you know, and then suddenly they have this pile of, you know, you go into their bedrooms, they've got this pile this high of stuff on their bed. We got it on sale. And you can always put in your closet. You have some great closet ideas out there. What we do actually with our closets and bedrooms and otherwise, we actually take the client's sign, a horoscope sign, and we choose their favorite color that's connected to their horoscope. We choose it, and we're absolutely spot on each time. So this woman is blue. We designed this cabinet so there's a pull-out on either side in the vanity. So that could be his and his, hers and hers, or his and hers. So if you're in a tight space, at least you can separate your medicines. Outside somebody's dressing room, between the dressing room and the bathroom, there's endless bench looking right out over the Hudson River, you know, where actually they sit and read, these guys, and talk. You know, that weird thing, talking. No. This is a gay couple. He likes pink and he likes scarlet. So we've had that chat. You know, what you like. You open the door and you get a little shock. So it's something to think about. I have salsa dancing red in my closet because I need a little boost in the morning. I'm a slow starter. No. And time's up. And I'm really open for questions. We have a lot of information. We're going to share the presentation with you, the visual presentation. We're also going to share our research. And we're going to share a workbook that I had in my first book. It's just a checklist, which is probably not totally up to date now, but there's a lot of information in it. And you can ask me anything you want, except the size of my waist. No.
First of all, a round of applause.
You said you didn't went to design school, but you started your business. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you started? And because I'm interested, because we are in school, and I mean, like, what is your experience like?
I started my business. I'll tell you the fast forward, the elevator pitch. No. How I started my business without going to design school. That was pretty well your question, yes? I started my first business when I was 17. I got married and had 3 sons, and my first business was fashion. I changed husbands, countries, and careers and went to live in Spain. I wasn't quite sure what to do with myself because I had, you know, I was in fashion. I had no training in fashion. I had 6 weeks training, actually, in fashion. But when I was in Spain, I didn't know what to do, and we'd bought a townhouse that was kind of beautiful on the outside and had been all carved up with little cubicles for some kind of government thing on the inside. And I said to my husband, I don't speak Spanish, I'd better learn Spanish, and I'll do it by maybe dealing with cleaning up this mess. So we hired an architect, and he turned out to be an absolute idiot. I kept saying to him, if the kitchen's there, you don't put the dining room there, come on, you know. And the day demolition happened, it was like, I've always, all my life, somebody touches my shoulder when I have to do something different. I was standing in the demolition dust, with demolition dust in the air everywhere. There was 14-foot high windows looking out into a beautiful old square with plane trees and birds. And the sunshine just hit the dust, and there was this strong mote of light that went across. And I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to design buildings. I'm going to design interiors. So when my husband came home, I said, you know that office downstairs? I'm going to start a design business. And he said, okay. So I did, and what you do when you, that's the courage born of total ignorance, really. But I did learn one thing in fashion: you hire the best possible people to work with. That's why we look for the best possible consultants. All our people in the studio, I would say, uniformly are brilliant. Everybody knows more than I do, including yourselves. But it's just feeling you can do it, and then you can do it. No, I started my first business with 400 pounds, Irish pounds, which would have been about $600. I hired a great tailor to come and sew, and I got publicity immediately. And you have to think, stand up, Em. So Em here is our director of communications. So everything we do that's good, right, gets out, you know, and Instagram, Facebook. If you want to sign up to join us, be more than welcome. And it's getting the word out. So so each time I've started business, the first time, the fashion, the Irish Cancer Society asked me to do a fashion show because I had a lot of publicity for my first few dresses. And there were a lot of important people there, and people started to buy my clothes, and then some buyers came in from the States, and the rest is history. You know, I got television, and you know, and left the husband. No. And in Spain, what happened as I hung out my signs saying Clodagh with, you know, design, so on and so forth, just walking back upstairs, and the doorbell rang. I opened the door. This really cute guy, you know, and he said, "Are you the English designer?" I said, "No." Why? He said, "Well, I want somebody to design my English pub." I said, "Well, I'm Irish." And he said, "Well, close enough. Will you design my pub for me?" So I said, "Yes." What was I going to say, right? No. So I went back up the stairs, and I said to my husband, I'd arranged to meet the guy about a half hour's drive away the following day. I went upstairs and said to my husband, "I'm nuts." And he said, "Look, you've nothing to fear except fear itself. You know, you have the taste, go do it." So I did, and I found a registered interior designer, an environmental architect who was on leave for 2 years from Liverpool University, where she'd been dealing with and teaching with solar design, solar panels, and, you know, environmental design. So that's 1,000 years ago now. I'm back in Spain now. 34 years in New York, and as soon as I started the pub, the architect came up to me and he said, "Would you design my house for me?" So it's. I think it's passion, too. It's putting so much passion into what we do. I would say one of the largest ingredients in our studio and myself is passion. We're totally passionate about what we do. So it's go from one project to another. I'm just as passionate. It's like, I always say jokingly to my husband, it's like having a new lover. I've got this great job in Jamaica, you know? No, you understand, yeah. But it's lovely. It's fun, and it always must be fun and laughter. But passion, just put passion in your pocket. Passion and belief in yourself too, because I certainly have the imposter syndrome. I'm about to have my first art show, photographic art show, and if you're interested, give them your emails, and I'll send you an invitation in Tribeca. But I've never done an art show before. I'm doing art photographs, and I've been saying to Em, "Do you think it's going to be all right?" Or, no. But you can't, unless you kind of step further than you really think you can. You know, always throw the ball to the end of the room and keep following it. No, it's something. We have a funny thing. We work with Charity Buzz, you know, our philanthropic part of our philanthropy, and when something doesn't sell on it, Ellen Sweeney, who works with our marketing and our philanthropy, says, "All I do is I stare at it. I stare at that piece, and the next moment somebody puts a bid in." You know, it's all about energy, really, isn't it? We're just directing and channeling our energy. What horoscope sign are you? Taurus? Charge. I'm married to one. No. Any more questions?
So your style of life-enhancing minimalism and these kind of consistencies that at least we've seen through the images that you showed us today in your designs, would you say that you already had this kind of style and this work idea like from the beginnings of your life and from like your early, even like your personal bedrooms and your personal homes? Or is this something that you would say that you developed as you became a designer more?
No, I've got a very good reason for being a minimalist, actually. My family was downwardly mobile, so we went from larger houses to smaller houses, and the antiques from my family, we come from that kind of aristocratic family where there were old silver and old mahogany and this, that, and the other. That money went to send me to school, the selling of the pieces, and I didn't like them anyway. I was expected to polish the silver and polish the tables. And as what we owned went down, I found I was more comfortable. There wasn't so much stuff around. There wasn't all the, oh, don't touch that valuable thing, or, you know, if you put your glass down on that table, there'll be a ring on it. So I came out with a very minimalist view on life. And then when I was working on fashion, I used all the natural materials, you know, the Irish linens, the Irish tweeds, Irish knits, and so on. Just wanted people to feel comfortable in what I designed for them. So I would think I've been looking through the same viewfinder since I started. And health, the reason I got very interested in health, I had a couple of really bad accidents. I broke my back when I was 15. I was on my back for months. And I was lying thinking about it, and I was thinking, you know, we spend so much time with our horses and our dogs, making them healthy and shiny and wonderful, you know. I started to think about how can we apply this to ourselves. So I've also been vegan now. I've been vegetarian for 45 years, 50 years, and it's interesting that. As I say, it's interesting we focus so much on our dogs' diets and not on our own, you know, and the horse's lodging places and how it's safe for the horse, but not on our own. So I think if you were inside my head, it's a constant conflict, would you say? Constantly challenging myself and others as to why are we doing this really, you know? And, you know, I was up with my two 80-year-olds the other day, and he said to me, you can't imagine that big, deep bench you put with the cushions in the window. Every evening when I get in, that's where I go. And I just love it, you know, and that's what you want to hear. You don't want to hear that the fabric's great, you know, or the drapes are gorgeous, you know. You want to hear that people are enjoying themselves and using the space and feeling comfortable there. And you can let your imagination fly when you're in a hotel lobby or something. And believe you me, we do, you know. But still keeping in mind, you know, the quality of light and life-enhancing, face-enhancing light. You know, it's so important. More questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So, since you like astrology and all this, how do you find people react when you ask them about like their zodiacs?
So I'm being asked how people react when they're asked for their horoscope signs. Yeah. Well, if they're suits, you know what a suit is, right? We all know what a suit is. If they're buttoned up, it takes them aback for a little minute, or they might say, "Why do you ask?" And then they love it. And the same thing with hugs. In our studio, we hug everybody. So when the suits come in, they get greeted, welcome to our studio, with a hug. And, you know, they're sort of like this, and then you see their face break up in a smile. Because, again, human touch is something that's missing in our environment. People don't touch each other anymore.
I think Michael has one. Yeah. Hi, I'm Michael. I did have two questions, but Kayla kind of hit the nail. My second question, and I hope you don't take offense to this, being such a powerhouse as a woman in design and not going to design school, what are some of the struggles that you face throughout decades of like really trying to be a powerful woman? And I know we're in an age of like the woman and women empowerment, but I find you very inspirational. I just kind of want to see if you had to face the big dogs or you had to fit in somewhere, if people were rejecting you, and that motivation to never give up, because I find that very, very inspirational.
Thank you. It's, well, first, I try to break down everything with humor. I mean, I've had Me Too moments on building sites, you know, all over, you know, because particularly when I was in Spain, you know, wearing miniskirts and fair-haired, you know, it was a long time ago, you know. The workers on the site would, you know, they'd jeer, they'd cast what they call piropos in Spanish, you know, and say rude sort of things. So how I coped with that, I'd say, look, guys, let's stop work right now. We're going to the nearest bar. I'm going to buy you all a cognac, and I'm going to tell you that I'm the boss on this site. And if you don't respect that, you're not going to continue working here. Cheers. That worked in Spain. And here I've had some serious problems with union people here, you know, being a woman. Some of the union guys hitting on you and, you know, making jokes. And there again, just stand up, you know. If you think of it as a conflict, which unfortunately it is, and you don't want to lose your femininity, which would be difficult for me, you know. No, you've got to think of another way to disarm rather than fight. So disarming is the best way I use, I think.
And do you feel like your portfolio and your previous work kind of like speak for itself? Like, you know, it's like it gives you recognition, it gives you...
My portfolio?
Yeah, or like, I mean, I guess I'm kind of tongue-tied because it's an embarrassing question, but I think it's quite powerful, especially, you know, where we've been and where we're going in this whole issue. Because architecture is the women's field now, you know, and it's hard for me.
Not so much architecture.
Or interior design.
Architecture are more suits. Women usually don't get upgraded in salaries and stuff like that as fast as the men in the architectural companies. That's fair to say?
That's very fair to say.
Yeah. Women still get only 76% of the salaries that men get for doing the same thing, you know, nationwide. It's a constant. I'm constantly aware and constantly pointing it out. Let's put it like that. And if somebody says something that's a little bit off, you know, we sometimes have had a couple of abusive clients. I'll get them on the phone to apologize to the person they're talking to, or else we won't work with them anymore. I mean, we've nothing to lose by standing up for ourselves, if you're standing up for yourself for the right reasons. But I do think conflict resolution, I mean, we're talking about classes and stuff like that. You know, we're talking to a school here that some maybe having a session on conflict resolution like that would be a very good idea for you to have. I actually, my largest job when I came here first was huge. It was like 20,000 square feet in the 9 West 57th. I got it by pure accident, and the union guys were all over us. And I mean, I had just come in from Spain, and I just said, let's all sit around a table and resolve this, and just spoke up. All the suits were kind of grumping, you know, and complaining and stuff like that. When I said cleanse, contemplate cleanse. Cleanse is also those outworn attitudes. We just had an attitude, remember? And this is a little sad actually, because the guy died of heart attack about 5 months ago. But we had an absolute wretch at the table, you know, 27 of us around a table working on a hotel project. And the guy was being just terrible. We've had 2 wretches recently, actually, the project manager for another big company we work with. But there were 27 people sitting around our table, and it's getting nasty, you know. It's really getting nasty. And we had a baby chihuahua in the studio. So I walked quietly out of the room and I put the baby chihuahua on the table. It was like you'd thrown a giant switch. Oh, all the guys, the nasty guy, everybody, oh, I have a dog. Everybody's getting their iPhones out and say, you've got to see my dog, and my dog, my dog's name is. So it's funny, like humor and taking, not going into collision course really helps. But you do get it. I mean, we've just asked for a guy to be taken off a job, and we've been asking for 1.5 years, I think, and now he's just been taken off, and they've seen the mess he's made. If you're working with a big corporation, it's difficult. But that wasn't because, but he did say women. No, he did make women remarks and designer remarks.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we'll do a round of applause here.